Hello everybody, this is Cosmonaut Hustle, dev commentary. Uh, so this is a university project, and the theming was 2D platformers. So what I thought that I should do was, well, I'll just show you. Let's play the game first. So I'll be going through the game, with my voice. While I play it, I'll note out like what I was thinking. Here we go. So on your 3R Stotz gun, you've got a ship to rebuild. Reference to Cyberpunk 2077, and also a reference to Papers, Please, one of my favorite games. And I decided to, when I was making this game, to base it in the world of Papers, Please. So you're in Arstotzka, and of course the iconic Glory to Arstotzka with the flag. Here you go. So here you're a Russian cosmonaut here, and you got a rocket launcher. And I just wanted to make a rocket jumping mechanic for the 2D platformer because I thought it'd be very interesting. Oh, but yeah. As you can see, the player gets flung, and you could do the stereotypical rocket jumping stuff that you'd find in the Quake series and Team Fortress 2. And you can see health bar up in the top left, bottom left. You have all the pieces of your ship you need to find, and here's a pain elemental that I decided was going to be the inhabitants of the planet you landed in, you crash landed in. And it's one of the only inhabitants here, I grabbed this random sky from Google Images, and I layered a filter on top of it, which made it more purpley. Here's the second part. But yeah, as you can see with like the smaller blocks, it's harder to rocket jump off of, but when you do get it, it's very nice. And here we go. Here's the ship done. And off it goes. It starts flying. I was kind of lazy at this part. I didn't really know what I wanted. I just wanted to finish the level. That's it. Here we go. Here's the speech. My dear Arstotzkans, our Cosmonaut program was a success. Our faithful Cosmonaut has returned home safely and has provided lots of valuable data. So this is obviously the officer. He's saying this towards the general Arstotzkan public. And it was a successful mission. Now let's show you what will happen if you fail and die, basically. Yeah, the public must not learn of your idiocy. You kind of fucked up. That's why you crash landed on the planet. And it will reflect poorly on the government. So fix your ship, return home at once. Use the state provided rocket launcher. Glory to Arstotzka. So what was I thinking when I was making the level? Well, I wanted a dynamic level to show off, the mechanics of my rocket launcher that I made, So I wanted lots of intricate platforming like these small blocks, but I also wanted a kind of sense of urgency to get the hell off of here, which is why the pain elemental, who should be coming. So that's why there are a lot of these gassers. Yeah, there he is. These gas enemies, these gas spewing enemies, which I took from the previous framework we were given to work with. And yeah, he does a lot of damage. He's slow, but once he catches up to you, which he will catch up to you, he does a lot of damage. Yeah, here we go. He's talking about an anti-state insurgent replaced the original pilot. He was sentenced to death via outer space and was denied re-entry. Again, saying this to the general public, and instead of portraying the player like a hero, he's saying, oh, okay, so there seems to be a problem because the original pilot, who we know is meant to be competent, has just been killed and replaced by an imposter who, maybe wanted to go to space. He's portraying the player like a bad person to keep, the government at a very respectable level. And as you can see with the dialogue, which is similar, which is the vibes that I got from playing Papers, Please. Yeah, it will reflect poorly on the government. So he's just trying to save face. He's trying to salvage what he can. Yeah, sure, there was a lot of good data gathered from the death of the quote-unquote anti-state insurgent. They're gonna crack down and make sure this shit doesn't happen again. Glory to Arstotzka. And another thing that I wanted to do here is like give the players some sort of freedom when completing the quests. So if you watched the previous video where it's just the demo, you can see that you can go both ways really. You can finish here where it's all like, oh yeah, it's quite nicely laid out. And I think Pain Elemental's gonna kill me here. Oh, barely. Yeah, he does a lot of damage. You have 100 health. He does 60 damage. And these little gasser people, I believe it's 15 if I recall correctly. And hopefully I have enough. Nope. We'll try again. But as you can see, you could clearly go both ways. It's slightly... It's not a linear path that you have to follow. You have the choice of going left and right. It's just that if you start in the left, if you start going to the left first, the Pain Elemental, he'll just be playing catch up with you, and it'll give you a lot of time. But again, it's much more fun if you go to the right first, because you'll know Pain Elemental's coming towards you. Yep, prevent an event occurring again. Glory to Arstotzka. Alright, let's go in one more time. The textures you can clearly see are ripped from Minecraft and other places, but the one texture that wasn't stolen, guilty, was the rocket. Here, let me, you know, I should go into the testing grounds. I'll do it after. Yeah, glory to Arstotzka. Obviously, I grabbed the Papers, Please textures from, you know, online, but here, let's pause. So you go into the actual game. Where is the player? Why is it so zoomed out? Entities, player. But yeah, this is a custom, I won't say sprite, because I just created it out of a lot of other shapes and pieces. Yeah, here you go. Here's the prefab. Yeah. And the rocket launcher is from the original Doom. It's a voxel texture that I just, you know, grabbed off of the internet and just added a little funny shapes onto it. Here, let me zoom in. Yep. Little star. This, that. This sky, it was taken from a game, I have no idea, but it had the text, "Thank you for being there with me," and I wanted to cover it up, so I just have a black box running around just to imitate like kind of the darkness that was left by these jagged edges, or probably trees, and it continues on into the darkness here. And the sky, the skybox is the same color as these pixels. And yeah, Pain Elemental, he starts right there, and he's gonna start following the player. As you can see, yeah, this part is lazily done, I'll admit, but the slanted edges makes it so you can't rocket jump off of them. So I saw no reason to try and make it clean. But yeah, all right. I'm gonna go into the testing grounds. There's scenes and testing grounds. Here is where I created everything, basically. Let me disable this boy. No, not the canvas. There we go. There. Alright. Whoa, that's a bit fucked. It doesn't matter. So, yeah. How the rocket launcher works is it's pause. So there's an invisible circle around the rocket launcher, and if it'll let me fucking click onto it, yeah, and it's the size of 3 units. I forgot the units, but it's quite a decently large radius. It's somewhat reflected in the explosion effect, but it's not completely captured. But if there are any applicable entities, so if they are on the player layer, which I believe I did for these boxes, yep, that too. If they're in the player layer, then it will affect anything in that layer. And how it works is from the origin of the rocket, it will find the distance between the rocket and the elements inside that circle. Well, the elements that can be affected inside that circle. And what it does is calculates the angle, and then from that applies a force. It's a static force, which means that the closer you are, it does, like, it's not similar to Quake, where the closer you are, the further you get thrown. But it's something. It's a mechanic. It's prototyping. But how it works is applies a force to any elements that can be affected, and then the player, how it interacts with the player is the player actually has two ways of movement, which, you know, are commonly known. It's the vector-based movement, and no, not vector, velocity-based movement, and force-based movement. But what I have done is, let's play again. What I have done is I made it so the player has access to both. Usually you wouldn't mix them, but it's the only way I can have X and Y launch movement. So when you get launched, it's both in the X and Y instead of just straight up, which I found during my testing. But it allows you to be thrown in X and Y, and it looks more realistic if rocket jumping were realistic. Let's be honest. And there's a variable and this is controlled by a variable in the player, in the Barrett character controller. So when I started making this, I gutted everything from the framework. Everything was removed, gone, except for the Barrett character controller, which, even though that survived, the movement was completely torn out, except for the jumps. And I basically wrote my own movement. So there is a variable controlling whether or not you will switch to force-based or velocity-based. What the rocket does is any affected entity in that radius will have, well, which is for the player. If the player is affected, then it will switch to force-based movement by switching the variable that controls it to true. And then I also, here we go. That's the win condition. Here we go. So launched is the variable I created, and if that's true, it will use force-based movement for this amount of time. Once that has finished, then it will return to using velocity-based. That way you can get a mix of both the smooth movement of velocity while also having the physics capability of force-based. If I lock this here, I believe you'll be able to see. Just watch. There we go. It's the grounded variable and jump force, speed, max jumps. Oh yeah, also I was able to cap the amount of jumps to 1. So yeah, as you can see, just jumping means I'm not grounded, but I'm also not launched. But if I jump, then I become grounded. And you can see for a slight amount that max velocity changed. So if I just bump this up for like 3 seconds, something like that. There you go. See, you're very slippery. And then after 3 seconds, you can use velocity-based movement again. So again, there you go. You're slipping and sliding, and then you're back to being normal. Let's put that back to 0.36, which is the number I came to a conclusion on just from testing. It felt way smoother that way. If it was longer, then it would feel kind of off when jumping. But yeah, as you can see, it can affect multiple things as well, as long as it's in the affected layers. Oh, there we go. I forgot. I already collected all of them. Let's stop that. Uh, what else? Oh, yeah. Max velocity. So, when you get launched, when launched is true, the max velocity becomes 7. And there's a few lines of code in the update that checks if the magnitude is above the max velocity. And if it is, it clamps it and makes it stop. It's like, no, piss off, you're staying at below the max velocity. So what I do is I constantly switch between those two, because if you have too high of a velocity, then you just be launched to infinity and beyond. If you have too low of a velocity, then it'll feel like you're falling in goop. That's why I have the max velocity as 200, and then when you get launched, the max is 7. It gives a nice balance. Again, it's just a lot of switching between variables. It's not too bad, but it did take a lot of rewriting. Originally, the script was every time you shot, no matter what happened, it would switch to the 7 max velocity for the amount of time specified in air control return. And though that did work, there'd be times when you'd just be falling. Oh, that's a block. There'd be times where you'd just be falling, you shoot, and then your velocity just slows down. It's like you're falling in goop. Which, there was some positives to it. That being, it allowed you to do sync jumping, which I like doing, which is the process of jumping from a height, just shooting a load of rockets to your feet, and then all of the explosions stack up. And because I clamp the velocity in this specific way, that means that you can't really replicate sync jumping that well. But there I go, that's my game. Well, that's the game mechanic. Let's explain the alien, aka the Pain Elemental. I have him on 0 speed for now, but that's just temporary for the testing grounds. So what he does is the rotation is locked. What it does is it finds any game object with the tag player, so this, and it will just start moving towards it, and how it deals damage is controlled in the health script for the player. This. So on trigger enter 2D, the player will take 60 damage. But also I have a little quirk where you don't want to get fucking insta-killed because you got touched twice within the same instance. So what happens is, as soon as the player leaves the circle collider, then it'll set off a timer, aka the stun time. And for that amount of seconds, the Pain Elemental will not move from that position. It can still attack, but it will not move. This gives the player a chance to, not die twice. Well, not get hit twice and instantly die, which would be really annoying. Especially for a game where you can mess up like that. It wouldn't be very fun. What else? We have the Gasser. The Gasser has a circle collider and a box collider for the actual little head, and I guess this is the mouth, but yeah, you can stand on top of him, but to make it seem like he's kind of like sucking you in, or like it's like a sticky enemy, you have no ability to jump. You probably can't see, but I'm pressing jump right now and it just won't let me. But here you go. Yeah, as soon as you touch the ground, it will allow you to jump. But yeah, I thought that was nice that, you're stuck in this little gas and it's just not letting you jump. The ship pieces, they are just generic PNGs or like generic prefabs that don't really have a script. I mean, yeah, they have no script, so there's part 3, part 2, part 1, and okay, so the full ship is spawned when the player collects all 3 ship parts, and after a little bit, it will destroy itself, and then load up this. Load up this thing, and that just always goes up. This is to give it the effect of, you know, getting ready to lift off, and then after a few seconds, then boom, you start flying. And here's the explosion effect that I used. There are only two animations, two things that use animation: the explosion and the player. The player has 3, I believe, and animator. Yeah. So the explosion only has 1, while the player has 3. So he has to choose between player idle, player jumping, player running. Those are quite clear what they are, and how it works is it has a parameter, and every time an action is completed in the bear character controller, it switches the player state to 0, which is idle, 1, which is running, and 2, which is jumping. And as you can see, the player can switch between all of these. Alright. Do I need to explain anything else? Maybe the HUD. So the health bar, it's just images upon images, and how it goes down is the fill. So the green bit, it is a fill type, and it fills from left to right. So when it goes down, it goes from right to left. And how that works is, in the player, in the health script, it is talking to this fill, and the HP bar image is representative of his current HP, which is 100. So if it was good to go down by 50, then it'll go down by, good enough, 50. Alright, I think that's all I have to do, all I have to say. Thank you for tuning in, and hope my explanation was well and thorough enough. I will be going over it again sometime, but yep. Thank you for tuning in.